If he was playing a jungler that has the ability to kind of assist and help out in these moments, Caps wouldn't be able to play like
That's
that.
a nice trade, actually, as the ult comes out for Broken Blade, but it's a bit too little too late.
Man's having no Hemo Plague. That's a pretty big team fight tool not available. You lose the damage amp, you lose the healing. Decoy goes in, finds 2 with a taunt. Nice! Face breaker onto 4. Holy set! Roddick's gonna be taken down first. BioPanther grabbing the kill.
Dude, they commit to the play. They're committing.
On towards Nexus turret number 1. BioPanther aims to try and trim this wave as best as he can. He has no ultimate. Second one goes up, knocks them.
This is BioPanther, one of the reigning talents to come out of Oceania and has competed internationally on multiple occasions, as well as winning multiple domestic titles, all the while surpassing 1800 LP at rank 1. This is a player I really wanted to talk to because I play with him a lot, and if there's one person I want to see on my team in loading screen, it's Bio. Not only does he have the deepest champion pool out of any Oceanic pro, his mental is unbreakable and he always plays towards a win condition. Primarily a top laner in pro play, but a fill player in SoloQ, he picks for comp over comfort, and no game is unwinnable with Bio on your team, but you can bet if he's on the enemy team and they're down 10,000 gold, he's still going to make you work for it. I hope you enjoyed today's interview, and if you have any questions for Bio, I'm sure he'll be reading the comments. Welcome, Bio. Thank you so much for jumping on with me today. Do you just want to give us a quick rundown of who you are and your identity within the community?
I'm Brandon BioPanther Alexander, and I'm a top laner for Chiefs. And yeah, my peak rank was 1.8k LP.
So just a few
on,
SoloQ, just a few SoloQ wins. That's a lot. So before we get to know, before we jump into some gameplay specifics, we're just going to ask some questions, kind of like to get you to know you some more, because obviously a lot of my viewers are from international, and OS isn't that big for League, and they might not have heard of you, even though you've played in international tournaments and stuff like that. So
Sure.
really quickly, where did your name come from? This is one I always love to ask question.
This one was like, so I'm really bad with naming stuff, and my brother really helped me when I created, like, when he helped me name my account. So my old username was Mr. Biohazard. It was really bad. It like, that is really bad. So then he was like, oh, you should add some of your old name with something new. So I was like, okay, I'll add Bio. And then he was like, because your favorite NRL team was the Panthers. So I was like, okay, we'll mix the two together. And that was just how my IGN became to be. And that was when I was like 12, 13. Like, I was very young back then. So yeah, that was like my first time when I actually started playing League. So yeah.
Yeah, right. So it's aged pretty well then, obviously.
Yeah.
But I like that because it kind of shows, it gives a bit of identity to the player. Obviously, you know, you like the Panthers, like that's something that's pretty cool, and it's like a name that's specific to you. Like, I kind of wish sometimes, like, I just have Rival, which is just literally like a noun. Like, I wish I had something that was a bit more specific, but
Yeah.
I don't know, whatever. That's okay. So did you, before League, obviously this has taken up most of your adult life, did you play anything before League, like competitively, or anything that interests you before League?
I was really big into Gears of War. I was really big into COD. I was really big into just the shooters. Yeah, like, I think the shooters, Gears of War, were like my main games. I just loved like the FPS and the third person shooters, so like those were probably my main ones. But like League, but the problem I have with like that question as well is like League has been a part of my life since 2010. I've played this game since 2010, so it's been a very long time. And yeah, like it's been a part of my whole childhood as well. So
Do you still branch out into like when the new Call of Duty comes out? Like, I used to play COD. We probably ran into each other back in the day. But do you still play the new CODs and stuff when they come out, or is there any FPSs that you look forward to coming out every year? Or
I think the last time I played like COD religiously was Black Ops 2. I think that was like the peak days.
Good game,
of,
good game.
Yeah, that was like the peak. But I think after that, then I kind of like lost a lot of interest, and then I just moved towards like, you know, League and went from there. So
yeah, of course. Dude, I could talk to you all day about how League went down a bit of a rabbit hole after Black Ops 2, but we'll continue. We'll continue on. So to offset the pressures of pro play and solo queue, do you have any interest outside the game, or is there anything that kind of like, if you're feeling off after a hard day at work, do you do anything that will kind of like alleviate the pressures and stress of the lifestyle that you live at the moment?
I'm a big advocate of meditation. I do that like literally religiously. I think like having a good like peace of mind and actually having like a set goal and being able to like clear your thoughts and be able to like deal with your emotions is a very good thing. But like other than that, I'm more like spending some time outside or exercise or just reading. Those are like my main ones, but I'm just big into meditation really.
Yeah, that's it's funny that you say that. Like, I just think that's so like the questions I have coming up about your mental, because I think the reason I chose you actually is because you have a very specific characteristic that you don't see in a lot of even pros, which is like a really sound mental. Like I literally have never seen you type in SoloQ that's anything negative.
Yeah.
And that obviously is like giving us an early insight, is the fact that you've spoken about meditation, and I know it's very powerful. I need to get better at it, and I want to get better at it. And it's really hard to get into though, like, to be fair. So I'm interested to dive into a little bit of that after.
Yeah, it's like a skill in anything. Like it does, like it feels like it doesn't do anything at first, but like over time it's kind of like journaling. It's like even like the smallest things, like these small things do add up, and like you kind of like feel like the advantages of it. So
yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree more. And the mental clarity, like I go for a walk basically daily, and before I go to training, just like helps prime my body for exercise. And while I'm doing it, it feels meaningless, but I really feel the effects of it either when I'm playing or like even later on in the day. Like those little things do add up, like you just said. Absolutely. So how highly would you value your sleep and diet to your in-game performance? I noticed when I was sending you stupid questions at like ungodly hours, you were always offline, but whenever I'd wake up, I'd always have a response from you early in the morning. So is that something that you have ingrained in your routine?
I think sleep is one of the biggest things that people don't think about consciously enough. I think that like people talk about, oh, I'm gonna reset my sleep pattern, and then like they stay up for like outrageous hours for like until like they sleep again. But I think understanding your body clock and like sleeping without an alarm and being able to be like, oh, if I wake up this time, how much sleep do I need? When do I need to sleep? Like you kind of just have to understand your sleep schedule, because then once you understand, oh, my body wants to wake up at this time, because like not everyone's like a morning person. Some people are afternoon people, and you kind of work around that. And then like it's also with like diet as well. Like you kind of need to have a good consistent diet, being able to like eat 3 times a day, or having like some consistent like meals of like just fruits and salads, I think is really important as well.
Do you find that it's challenging living? So obviously, you know that you're the summation of your environment and your peers. Obviously in a gaming house, a lot of, I don't know anything about the Chiefs. I'm not speaking against them or anything like that, but some of the gaming house environments I've visited and been to have been kind of like negative in that aspect. Have you found that living in a gaming house challenges that, or would you say that you're kind of like one of the players that look like other players on your team would look up to lead the example? Because obviously I see in the background like no one's probably up yet, I would assume.
No one's awake.
Yeah. Do you think that that's kind of like living in a gaming house challenges that, or do you find it pretty easy to stay true to that part of yourself?
I think I can speak volumes of that, because like a lot of pro players kind of just order food and then they just eat out all the time, because like they just feel lazy and they just want to play and eat, and like they just want to do that rotation. But I think that like, especially when you're like playing professionally, like I think actually knowing how to make food for yourself, like look after yourself like as a person, I think is super important. And I think something that people don't value enough, because like it kind of like gets into that mentality where they kind of just don't know what to do when like they just don't know what to do with food, or they don't know how to look after themselves. And I think it's like a really vital thing when people just kind of like brush off, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I literally couldn't agree more. Like it's one of the things that just ties you and grounds you to like real life more as well. And like once your gaming career is over, you're probably going to have sacrificed like years of times when you could have been self-developing or, you know, honing skills or whatever. Like obviously that's something that you do really well. So that's good. That's good to hear that you do that.
Like it's also just making food is fun. It's just like it adds like some more like activity with your life. Even if you're not like a big person into like exercise, it just gets your body moving. And I think it's like a good thing instead of just sitting down playing League all the time.
Yeah.
Like having the balance in life, I think is really important.
Yeah, and it's such a like rewarding and nourishing feeling when you like sit down and you have this beautiful like chicken veggie stir fry with rice. Like you have a very, you know what I mean? Like it's a different type of satisfaction.
100%.
Yeah, definitely. And also when you got a missus, you know, and you can cook, that's like bonus points everywhere. You know?
That wins everyone. That wins everyone. So like that is the play. If you want to get a girlfriend, it is the play.
There you go. 1800 LP, learn to cook. That's how we go. So if you didn't play professional video games, obviously you said you've done this most of your adult life, and I assume from an early age when you got into this, you probably wouldn't think that you would have done it for 10 plus years. But what would you be doing now if you didn't play Pro League?
Oh, see, like, I've never really like. I think there would be like 3 options. It would be a counselor, because I really like to delve into like like kind of like a psychologist, but like a counselor to just help people with like their life difficulties. I'm really good at drawing as well, so I'll probably like look into being an architect, and probably just something in the gaming field. I think those 3 things are kind of like my interest in general. So one of the three.
Yeah, the counselor thing obviously ties back into the like mental soundness that you were talking about earlier, and it's obviously something that you practice in day-to-day life as well. Yeah, that's awesome. Like good career choices, and they obviously align with your identity as a person as well. Yeah, that's great, man. Nice, good stuff. So the next one, have your parents always been supportive of your career choice? Because obviously we know in probably even more so like in our generation, parents were a lot more objected to kids just like sitting on their ass playing video games all day. Nowadays, it's not too bad because people can see it as a career. You know, all these gamers making crazy money and whatever, so it's easier to get across to your parents. But like when we played League, like broadband internet was like barely a thing. And like, how did your parents go when you kind of like approach them with that?
I think the biggest thing is exposure. I think my parents are like very just foreign to this whole thing. So like when I was talking about doing this, they kind of just like brushed it off, or they didn't see anything. I was like, oh, he'll get over this and he'll just go into a proper career, yeah? Because they were like, oh, what is this? Like, you know, like they just don't see it as a real thing. But like when my mom went to PAX with me for the first time, she was like exposed to it, and then she was like, oh, you know what, like I'm actually seeing where he's coming from, and he's like, she's able to like see the other professional players, whether it's like CS:GO or Apex or something like that. Like she's just got exposed to it, and I think she was more open to be like, oh, you know what, I'll give you a time frame. If you can get in it in the time frame, then you can do it. If not, then like do something else. And I think that was like a really big thing, because I think having a time frame to something puts a lot of agency to it. So then you put your all in. Like for example, my mom was like, oh, do it in like a year, and if you don't do it in a year, then like treat it as a hobby, and if it happens, it happens. If not, then just go to a different career path. So like I did it, and then she was like proud of me, but it's also like, oh, the time frame made me push myself the hardest to make sure I get in. So
Yeah, love that. I think that's kind of what my mum did as well. She was like, if you see something tangible coming of this, or you like are making good progress that you can kind of show me, and I can like see that, you know, I'm not just letting my son sit on his ass all day every day and make something of himself. So that's great. Like obviously you have a supportive family, but it's in the right way as well. You know, they've been guiding of it and not just been like, you know, I don't care what you do. Like that's negligible and stuff. But that's great. That's good to hear that your parents
it's just about exposure, because like a lot of them just don't understand. Like they kind of like neglect it because they don't understand. But once they start like getting into that and like seeing how it works, then they're more open to like, oh, you know what, I'll let you try it, and like we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't like honestly, that would be like I played in a pro COD tournament when I was a kid, and seeing mum rock up to that, like I was literally on a stage and I saw her in the crowd, like it was just the coolest. Because she had the same thing as when your mum went to PAX, you know, it's like a light bulb moment, like, oh, he's actually, this is cool, like this is something that he's good at, you know, like it's, yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, congratulations firstly, because obviously your career's done amazingly, and it's great that you have a supportive family.
Thank you.
That's all right. Let's go on to the next one. So with a bit of background done, we're going to jump into some gaming related questions, know some more about the league and your actual like take on the game. So a couple of like little trivia questions first. What was your first favorite champion, and what is your current favorite champion? I know you play a lot, but like, yeah.
I think, well, the first champion that I loved in League was Pantheon. I still remember 3,150 IP to buy that champion. I grinded for that champion. I think Pantheon is like one of the coolest champions. Like that was my first ever like pride, and I think if I was talking about like now, it would probably be like Jace or Jin. I think those two champs are just really like aesthetically cool. They're very mechanically cool, and I think they'd have a lot of playmaking, so probably those two.
Yeah, nice. Well, I know as well. I'll put some footage on the screen. This is the old Pantheon you're referring to too.
Yeah, the old one.
Yeah, he didn't have there were some ties to his old champion, but like most of his abilities were completely. His identity as a champion was different as well.
Yeah.
But I'll show you the old one. Yeah, but that's cool though. Like I know a lot of I see you a lot on Jin. I haven't seen a lot of your Jace, but I see a lot of your Jin in SoloQ as well. Obviously very formidable, just gapping everyone who's actually an ADC main. So that's great. I love that, having you on the enemy team. It's so fun.
Yeah.
Do you have any favorite skins at all?
That also ties back to Pantheon. I remember. Because there's a lot of skins that are like aesthetically cool, or they're very like they look really cool, but I think the one skin that I have a lot of ties to is Glaive Warrior Pantheon, because I remember it was one of the first skins I purchased when I was 13. Like when I was 13, I was begging my parents to be like, you know what, like please let me log on, because I got an RP card after school, and I was like, let me log on and buy the skin, because they were very strict with my like curfew. So I logged in, I bought the skin, and then I exited, and I went to bed so happy. I was like so proud of myself for some reason. I just felt like that was like my first ever skin that I got to like get for myself and own. So like I think Glaive Warrior Pantheon has like a sweet spot for me.
I love that story. That's so good.
Yeah.
That's again, it just shows like more into you as a player and like how you value things. Like I think back in the day as well, I think when you saw someone have a skin, it was almost like scary because you're like, oh my god,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
player has a skin, you know?
It's like a main. It's like,
Legit,
it's
yeah,
like a main,
exactly.
yeah,
You're like, fuck, this guy takes it seriously. That's scary. So what is your, I know you play a lot of champions and usually you pick for comp or for the matchup, but what is your least favorite matchup in the game? Probably, we'll talk about top lane because top lane, as we know, is the most volatile and the most influenced by what matchup is played top. We'll go top lane.
Least favorite matchup. Oh, that's hard.
You can actually let's like narrow it down a bit. So this season, obviously with metas, so it'll narrow it down to like 5-10 champs or whatever. What matchup do you hate? Like you literally see the draft and you're like, you know this pick's coming, and you're just like, ugh, I'm weak sided here. Like,
like that. It would probably just a tank into Gwen. Like Gwen is literally one of the worst things because like no matter what you do, even if you get like a slight lead, she'll just be able to scale, and you can never kill her. She outscales you. She out kills you, and like it's like, oh please my team, play around her W and kill her. Like I just think that like I don't like champs where like they just, you have no agency in the matchup and it's just like, oh, I just have to pray that my team plays well, you know. Like that's how Gwen works, and I think that it's kind of like that polarizing like gameplay thing that I really don't like.
yeah, no, I can like when you pick a tank or you kind of pick something that's like an easy matchup for said champion, you feel as a player that they're just getting to play the game for free, and it's frustrating because like even though you might be a better player and like managing wave better and whatever, you can't do anything about it. Like that's exactly how I feel when I play Riven into Kennen. It's like I want to headbutt my keyboard, and it's like it is the worst thing ever.
It's just nothing you can do. It's literally nothing.
Legit, and like you can even outspace them or play better than that. I don't want to talk about it. It's gonna make me mad.
Yeah, it's fine.
So do you have any sort of like warm up routine before you play, either for pro or SoloQ?
Warm up routine.
Like practice tool, or do you do any wrist stretches, anything like that?
Oh, I usually use this. I usually use this to strengthen my wrist because there was a time in pro that like I cracked my wrist and like it kind of hurt playing for a while, and I just use this like a lot now just to make sure that like that never happens again. So I kind of just use this as like to warm up my hands and to make sure that like I'm ready to play all the time, and I don't have any injuries like long term, because like I want to be playing this as long as possible, and like I think like making sure that your wrists and your hands are like very like looked after is like the most important thing. So,
yeah, I couldn't. Well, don't know if you've seen much recently, but Faker is out at the moment because of wrist injuries, which is obviously massive because he's obviously been one of the pinnacle players for the last 10 years. So as you just said, you want to be doing this as long as possible, and I'm sure he has physio and stuff like that. But at the same time, like you have to be pretty vigilant with your wrist health because that's something that can translate to later in life. Like you're going to be gutted if you have carpal tunnel.
Yeah, because age does come. Like it will come, like catch up to you, and like that's what I mean is that like even if it doesn't like affect you now, you need to be like looking after it as soon as possible, because like the earlier you do it, like the better you are later on. Because like at the end of the day, like you can't like stop aging. Like we're all gonna age, and I think it's very important to like focus on like improving it earlier than like later.
Yeah, definitely. And to add on to that, actually, something like just a general tip as well for anyone that's watching. The younger you are, it's actually easier to build muscle and develop exercise routines than the older. Because obviously when you hit like mid-30s, mid-40s, whatever, your body's going to start to get a bit creaky, your energy levels are lower, all that sort of stuff. So developing exercise routines and habits like you have already done when you're younger is a lot easier to do than when you're older, because obviously your body's more able. You kind of feel like you want to do it more as well.
Yeah.
So very, very, very important, like that stuff as well, because gaming as a job is really new still, as well as not a lot of science. Like I'm surprised we don't have like full physio teams on pro teams yet. Like I think some do, but like it's still very new. The health of gamers is extremely important, even compared to pro athletes. There's just different health risks that come with it, and I'll actually be interested to see if anything from like a neuro standpoint comes of it later in life, like whether or not we're going to see any research come up about that kind of thing, because obviously it's going to affect sleep and stuff as well. It could tie in, don't know. Yeah, so that's good stuff that you've kind of taken that on yourself as well, because I'm sure no one's really told you to do that, but it's in your head to do that either way. So good self-awareness. You've played, so you travel a lot for League obviously, and you've played on multiple servers. It's a pretty big conception in the community that OS as a server is obviously, like, we haven't had a great international showing, but from a SoloQ perspective, would you say that SoloQ is like harder in other seasons? Because obviously we've seen players like Incursio go to like EU West, who's obviously an Oceanic one trick, and he's hit like 1300 LP, like rank 7 or something like that. What would you say your take is on that?
I think that like O's players individually, like because I've played in Korea, EU West. Like the only region that I haven't played in is like NA or China. But I like playing in Korea and EUS. I think that the thing that I've like realized over time is that like individually the players here aren't like mechanically bad. Like I think that like the things that like are different between us and like other regions is spacing, matchup knowledge, and just being able to just play the map more, because I think like OS is kind of like very slow. It's very slow paced. Like when you play SoloQ here, it's very slow. Like no one wants to do anything. Like no one wants to make a mistake, and there's just one team fight, end the game. Like that's just how OS SoloQ works. And I think that like there's not a lot of risk taking, so we kind of just get on the back foot all the time, and we kind of just do nothing. Where like Incursio is like that player where he just fights, and like it kind of like wakes up the whole like server, in my opinion, and that's why like he always gets high rated, especially in like other regions, because like his playstyle is super fast, and if he like gets ahead, he wins.
Yeah.
So I think if OS wants to like learn anything, it's more about like taking more risks, and I think that like they need to be able to like get better at spacing and all that. But it's just mechanics are there. I just think that like just spacing matchups are like the biggest thing.
Yeah, I 100% agree about the spacing thing, because like when I play, the biggest difference between me playing like against a random master top laner and playing against like, I don't know, you, let's like say for example, like you'll cast a slow of some kind, anything, whether it's Malphite, cheese wheel, like you ground slam, whatever, and I can't. You'll play like the movement speed difference, so like your champion will move faster than mine, and I can't auto. Like you can kind of like move into my auto range, auto me, and then when I go to turn around to auto you, because you have more movement speed than me, you'll already be out of my AA range, sort of thing. And like no one in OS does that kind of like little niche things playing. Like I think slows are so underrated as a CC value, and like players like you and like higher rated players, I know Kisei does it really well as well. Like there's really good laners. That's definitely something I don't see a lot in OS, but I know I've spoken to Nice, who obviously has played in Korea a lot, and he says that's the biggest wake up call for him when he plays overseas from NA. He noticed as soon as he got to like plat in Korea, players like outspacing him with like slows and these like ranged abilities and stuff, and he'd like never found that before, even in like challenger NA. So yeah, that obviously reigns true with what you just said as well. So someone got to get better at OS, guys. You suck. So at the moment we have a pretty I don't know what to say about the meta at the moment, but I'm gonna give you a question. You got to buff one champ or nerf one champ?
I would buff Camille, and I would. Oh, who would I nerf?
Is that so you can pick her into tanks?
No, I just think, okay, like I want to buff Camille. I'll name it first. I want to buff Camille because I think she's actually the worst top laner in the game. I honestly believe that. I think she loses like literally every matchup. I think she's very slow, and I think that like she doesn't have the laning power that she always used to have, and I think that like really does punish her like wake up between 1 to 2 items, and I think she's way too slow. Even if once you get 2 items, you still lose. She, like it's kind of like you're playing like a worse Jax, worse Fiora, worse Olaf. Like it's just that's why I don't like Camille anymore. Even if like it's good into all the champs, I think she really needs a stronger laning phase to be like. I don't know, fight back. I just think Camille does like lack a lot in the game, and I think if I was gonna nerf one champ, nerf one champ, I'll just say Renekton.
Renekton.
I think Renekton is just too polarizing. I think when he's strong, he kind of like negates a lot of top laners to be viable, and like once he's picked, it's like pick a tank or pick Jax. And that's it. Like there's no other like you pick Rumble or something. Like there's no like niche. Like you have to pick specific things, or that's it. Like that's how Renekton works, and I don't like that, where like if this champ is in the game, you have to play a certain way, and that's it.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Yeah, like I think it's probably the most meta-defining top laner, because obviously having Renekton as an open pick is going to define jungle matchups as well, because obviously junglers will play around Renekton or not, like vice versa. I do actually want to know your opinion on this, because you've been a top laner for a really long time. What's your opinion on Jax?
I think Jax is really strong. I think he's OP. I think like my call with top lane is that top lane right now you have to beat Olaf, Jax, Fiora. Like these 3 champs are like the pinnacle of top. If you can beat these 3 champs, then you're a good top laner. And that's how like Renekton kind of beats all of them. But like it's just the fact that like Jax, I don't know. I just don't like Jax because he has a strong laning phase. He has one of the strongest like 1 to like level 3s, and then like he's just outscales and he has good items. I think the items do help him a lot. I think that's one of the biggest issues. But I think that he's a good team fighter, good split pusher, and he's very annoying and very tanky. He kind of has everything. So like I just think he's very annoying. So
Yeah, I agree. Like that's kind of, I just wanted your take on it because I think Jax has been S tier for X amount of years. Like I just feel like Jax has never really had a bad place where, like, probably more so in SoloQ. I don't play pro, obviously, but it just feels like, I think the issue I have with it is like abilities that make a champion so they can hit but can't be hit. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like Jax can just be autoing you like level 1, go to trade back, nope, and you're just gonna, he's gonna do more damage to you as a consequence of it. And I just feel like it feels so unfun when Jax just like Qs on you and you're just like, well, I have to back off here and burn all my abilities, and now I've lost all agency and prioritization in the lane because I can't trade for another 10 seconds because my abilities are down because I've had to defend myself from this like hyper scaling Giga Beast jumping on me with a longsword. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I've just never liked Jax. I just think when Jax is strong, he's very polarizing, and like it's just, oh, I have Counter Strike, or I don't. If I Counter Strike, I just win. And then like late game, he's Counter Strike every 4 seconds. So like, how am I ever killing him?
Yeah.
And it's like good against like AoE because it reduces AoE damage. Like it just does everything. Like and that's the problem I have.
and
with
his
Jax.
ult
He
giving him
does-
like a million armor and MR as
yeah,
well. Like,
he just does everything, and I think that's like why I think if you're gonna like grind solo queue, I think Jax is just a perfect pick.
yeah, I couldn't, like, if someone comes to my stream and they're like, should I play Riven? I'm like, brother, go play Jax. Like, I just don't,
like
do
Riven,
not.
I think Riven is terrible.
Dude, she's so, it's just hard. Like, because there are ways to make her work, like, for sure.
Yeah.
But it's like, I have to do 10 times the work like a Malphite does to, like, impact the game. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, of course.
Like, it's just, it's a different, like, I think that you can argue with that with every champion. Like, there are specific niche ways to make, like, you'll see, for example, like, Singed is a good one because if a random player picks up Singed in, like, first times and they're just going to lane, like, normal and whatever. But then you'll see there's, like, one tricks, sack full waves to go proxy, and then they'll, like, Predator bot at, like, level 3, and you're just like, all right, so there are ways to make certain niche picks, like, impact the game, but it's outside the realm. Like, you really got to think outside the box. Like, Malphite rock up to a team fight, jewel on your keyboard, and you get a 3-man ult. Like, you know, like, it's
Yeah.
just different.
No skill needed. No skill
Yeah,
needed.
yeah, 100%. I agree with that. Yeah, definitely. I had to rant because I just hate Jax, bro. I was like,
Nah,
that
that's
champ
fine,
sucks.
that's
If you mostly play Phil and SoloQ, what drew you to be a top laner to begin with?
The funny thing is that I wanted to be a pro AD carry. I didn't want to be a pro top laner. I think, my first ever pro team, or like my amateur team, didn't have a top laner, and I just gravitated towards it, and I kind of fell in love with it because the one thing I love about top lane that no other role has is you can play literally anything. Literally anything. AD carries, mages, tanks, supports. Like you can play Soraka, Lulu, like Karma. You can play whatever you want top lane, and it's going to be viable. And like that's what I like about top lane. You can play bruisers, tanks, fighters, like anything. And that's why like I think it's the most versatile role, but it's also like the role that you can learn the most from as a player, because I think that it's so isolated and it's so 1v1 based. Like that's why like I think that like top lane gives you like the spacing, learns about matchups, because like no one's interacting. It's not like bot lane where it's like, oh, my support goofed me, or like, you know, I did this and like my person didn't follow up, or I'm playing mid and I'm getting ganked by like 5 different people. In top lane you're never getting ganked, yeah, like, or you're never getting like any interactive until like 3 camps or like 6 camps. Like you're not going to get any interaction by like the jungler at all. So like in my opinion it's just that it's the role that you can get the most out of individually. So
Yeah, I agree with that. I also think, I personally like top is obviously like the 1v1 centric thing, but I think like I love little things like as a good top, like contesting like every CS, and like the amount of like dopamine you get of like just good spacing and like pushing someone off one cannon, or like you rock up to a lane and you go like stand between them and their casters and you're just like, you can't touch the lane. Like little things like that as a top, I'm just like, oh, this role.
yeah,
But then
you just feel so like strong and dominant. Like you just able to like just take over the lane, and that's why like top lane is so fun. Like you can be assert so much pressure when like you're in control.
agree, dominating's a good way. Like you can really get, like you can make as a top laner, you could make as a rank 1 player, you can make rank 2 look like silver, just because of the fact that like a good top laner will always like press agency, and like once you have a lead and they can't play the game, like that's it with top, unless they get help obviously. But yeah, no, I agree, great answer, that's good. So aside from your versatility and wide champion pool, I would say that your defining characteristic as a player is your mental. So obviously like when I load into SoloQ and I see you on my team, I'm like, great, we're always going to have like a win con, someone that actually has their head screwed on. And this ties in with your meditation as well. So I said we were going to jump into more of that. I think a game that has as much tilt as it does, maintaining your composure and perspective with mental techniques can really separate you as a player. Do you want to jump into more of like how you kind of navigate that part of League? Because I think that's a really underspoken about part at like higher levels.
I think that like a lot of people just get in their heads about like, oh, what happens in the game? Like, oh, my bot lane's inting or someone's inting. But it's like, I think the League journey in general is about, it's like, it's not a race, but it's like a marathon. Like it's like your rank is based on the consistency of like the games over time. You can't just play like 3 games and reach like your peak rank or reach the rank that you want. Like if you want to reach gold, platinum, or like rank 1, it doesn't matter what it is. It's the fact that like the consistency will make it there. And I think the fact is that everyone ints. Like I int, everyone ints, and like that's what I'm saying is like if someone has a bad game, like at least you can improve from that game that you played. Or did you trade well? Did you get like lead in lane? Could you do anything with it? Like be conscious or be curious about like your learning, and I think that's very important about like your just not even in League but like in general in life. Like just be curious about like your thinking and your what you're doing in life and what you're trying to like improve on. And I think it's very like being conscious about it is very important.
Yeah, I love that answer. So I think a good example I can use to tie into that is like, you are speaking of vigilance with learning. So obviously like taking it upon yourself and going the extra step, not just like kind of having it handed to you through repetition. One good thing to kind of like link that back to is I always think of stagnation is poison. So with like water, whenever water's stagnant, it like grows moss and fungus, and you know you see like a puddle that hasn't moved in ages. It's disgusting. Like that's very applicable to life. You really have to like, that's not just with League as well. That's just a life lesson. Like stagnation will rot your brain, will rot like your ambition, like everything. So I think like what you just said is a good. That's a thing as well. Like League has a lot of sort of like life lessons that can be applied. Like you just said, consistency. That's the biggest thing with like any goal in life as well, is like applying consistency to that. And I've learned a lot about like kind of applied League lessons to life as well, and vice versa as well, like a lot of life things that I can apply to League and stuff. And I think what you just said really hits the nail on the head. The consistency is a big thing, and I think the fixation on like one loss as well is what ties a lot of players up. Like you just said, a good thing where it's like you need to fixate on little things in that loss and like make sure to not repeat them to like keep getting better.
But it's also like an important thing is that like you just can't let a win or a loss control how you feel. Like you can't let it just control just like, oh, your outcome of your day, or enjoy like your enjoyment of like the game, or enjoyment of like why you're queuing up. Like if your goal is to reach gold 3 or something, but like, oh, you win and you're super happy, and then you go to bed happy, but then you lose and now you're depressed, and now you're just like, oh, what am I doing? Like, you just can't let like a game, I guess, like alter your like personality, or just alter like your feeling. And I think just being able to like take a break, if you're upset or angry, take a break and come back and like reach that goal. But it's just over time you just have to realize that like it's all about the small wins, the small goals.
Yep, couldn't agree more. That's a great answer.
Yeah.
If you had any easily applicable advice to any player, whether they're bronze or challenger, that a player could take from this interview for climbing, what would that be?
I think it's just remember, it's not a race. Like, it's a marathon. Like, if you want to reach your goal, it'll be a slow stepping process. And I think that like if you're talking about like gameplay wise, I think that like if you want to learn the most, I think thinking about your waves, thinking about like waves, and thinking about what you can do on waves. And if you're thinking about jungle, like thinking about what you're doing towards like a lane, or like what's your pathing and like how you're going to optimize that. I think that's the biggest thing. I think minions and how they spawn and like how consistent they are, like the game will never change without them. Like the minions are always like stagnant, like they're always the same. They're always going to spawn, they're always going to reach, there's always going to be like a 2-wave crash, 3-wave crash, and all this stuff. It's just being able to be like, oh, what am I going to do with my wave? Am I going to ward? Am I going to do something? And I think it's just being conscious about like the things that will never change in League, like the minions. I think it's very important.
I think a good thing that like sort of ties in with what you said, like things that never change in League. A lot of players fixate on whether it's like an egotistical based driven action within playing. So whether they go for like a random fight with inside a wave or something like that, like you're literally just doing that for the dopamine hit. But if you play towards like consistent variables, like you said, so like instead of doing that, just wait for the crash, go farm Gromp, go farm Krugs, like whatever like that.
Yeah.
Not inhibiting your own resources is like such a big thing, and I think so many players don't play towards that. Like I think with Viper, for example, is my favorite player. He always plays towards consistent income, so like he's always got like 11 CS per minute. Like he's an absolute freak with farming. And Neck Min, because he's been consistently farming throughout, and like, he has consistent resource income for the entire game, he all of a sudden is like level 18 when the Fed ADC on the enemy team is level 13, and the game's just over. Like, there's nothing he can do because he didn't just like take random fights and always has consistent, like, he plays those consistent variables that you were just speaking about.
Yeah, make yourself strong before you help others. It's like make yourself strong, make yourself in like a strong like position, and then you take control later on. Like, you don't always have to like, oh, I have to get a lead to win this game. No, like you just have to be able to like be consistent, make sure you're not behind, and then you can be able to like accrue leads slowly.
Yep, couldn't agree more. That's a great answer. So as one of the last questions, and it's pretty similar to what we just spoke about, what was a point in your solo queue journey that you really saw a technique or lesson you applied to your own gameplay that made a noticeable difference? So let's say, for example, you got to gold for the first time, and then you watched a video about wave management, and then that kind of like broke you out of a bit of stagnation. Is there, like, this is a kind of similar to the last question, but maybe like a little bit different. Do you want to jump in?
I think just reaching gold for the first time, because I think my thing is that like back in the days, reaching gold was like the pinnacle. It made you god. Like, honestly, when I was like gold, all my friends would be like, "What the hell? You're gold 5? That's crazy! Like, you're the best player." Everyone's
You're the
like,
Victoria
here, like,
skin?
3.
No way.
Yeah, like you actually got the Victoria skin. Like, that shit is sick. And I think gold was like probably the peak of like, oh, you know, I'm actually getting better at the game. And like, yeah, of course, right now, like when you look at it, it's like, oh, gold is just whatever. But I think that like having that's what I mean about like the small milestones. It's like reaching like these milestones with like gold, plat used to be so big. It used to be like a big thing. It's like Lee Sin's insect. It used to be such a big mechanic that everyone wanted to like do, but nowadays it's like, oh, it's expected. And I think that like it's kind of like realizing like how important like certain like plays or mechanics were back in the days. It's like it's really nice to like remember back on those.
I think a common, reoccurring theme that I think a few things that you've spoken to me about are an essence of gratuity. So you speak of really highly of, in my opinion, one of the most boring skins in the game, which is Glaive Warrior Pantheon. Obviously, that's like core memory for you. And as a kid, you were super gratuitous towards having that experience and obviously like getting that first skin and whatever. And then at the same time, you said the same thing about gold. So I think like a big thing for, again, something that's probably even more applicable to life as well is like being, and it lacks in today's society in general, is being grateful for things. Whenever I feel depressed or down or whatever, I literally just sit back and I look around and I'm like, I have this comfortable bed, I have a roof over my head, you know, like all these like little things in life. I always try to tie back to being grateful for, because it's so easy to forget what we have and fixate on what we don't have, if that makes sense. Like, I call mum and she's like, just take a breath and like think about what you do have. Like, I do YouTube for a job or whatever. If I'm feeling like sad, be like, bro, you don't have to go to work today. Like, it's such a big thing. So one thing that you said, which I think is like also a reflection of like your self-awareness and like your mental game, is the fact that you obviously are really grateful about these like little things, which I think not enough people do, in my opinion, but it's refreshing to hear someone, to say the least. I just wanted to like add that in there.
I think it's just about enjoying the journey, because the thing is that like we're all going to reach the destination. Like people are always just stuck up on like the social norm of being like, oh, you have to have your life together by 30 and 40, like you can't have this and that without it. But like it's not expected. It shouldn't be. Like, it's never expected. It's the fact that like everyone has like their own process in life, whether it's like, oh, like they had like a tough childhood or whatever. Like, you can't just like inhibit someone on being like, oh, you should be like out of my house or like have this sorted and all this stuff when like you're 20 or 28. Like at the end of the day, it's all about the journey. Focus on like enjoying the time that you have, and then you'll be able to reach that part of like, oh, I'll get my own house, I'll have my wife and all that stuff, and like just have your life together. Like it will come in time, but like just don't rush it to the point where like you're not enjoying yourself throughout like your whole journey.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. There's days when I'll rock up to the gym and it is the last thing I want to do. Like, I'll look around and be like, oh, I am just going to do nothing today and just like put the bear in. But then I think back to myself, there's going to be one day when I'm 50 and I have arthritis, and I would not rather be anywhere else than in my present body, in my present environment, like playing. Like the same thing as you. Like, I'm sure there's some days you wake up and like, oh, I don't want to fucking play League today. There's just no way. But then you look at your surroundings and you're like, one day I'm going to have a wife and kids and responsibilities and all these things, and I can't be in a gaming house and I can't be playing video games, because I'm going to look back and think this was the best time of my entire life. And that's also something that I think with like, it's kind of just like ties in with just the way the internet is and integrated into our lives, like short form content and stuff makes people really feel, I don't know if it's because they're just kind of like looking for the next dopamine hit or whatever, but being present and like appreciating things that you do have. kind of ties into with gratuity as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is like reflective of what you just said as well. So
I think it's a really big thing because like whenever like because I don't think of like what I do is like a really big thing, but like when I talk about my family and like and they're all impressed or like they're very like, oh, I want to do what you do, like it's such a like an amazing thing. And like when I think about like in the future when I talk to my grandkids or like kids in general, it's just like being able to be like, you can do whatever you want in life, you know, and like this is why I do it. And like for me to like reach out and be like, oh, this is what I did, and like now you can follow me in my footsteps, or you can do whatever you want, you can do whatever like you feel passionate about, but at least if you have that passion, follow it and be able to do it, like I think it's just super like I guess rewarding. It's like it's always nice to be like looking up to someone that like went out to do that, and I want to be like that aspect that people can look up to. So
yeah, definitely, man. That's really, really good. Do you have any like brothers or sisters or anything?
I have an older brother.
What does he do?
He's a doctor, he's a nurse.
Okay.
So like my family's just all nurses. They just want to look after people. So
okay. Yeah. No, that's pretty cool. Like, pardon me. Did he kind of facilitate any of your game playing, or did you do anything that you sort of followed in, or are you both like pretty separate people?
Oh, he got me into the game, and also like he used to just his peak rank was gold, and he stopped playing at season 3. But like he was just a jungle main playing Nasus, Udyr, Warwick, like the old junglers, and I think that like. Me and him used to just game all the time. We used to just play like split screen a lot. Like we kind of just like grew through gaming, and I kind of continued while he like went off in his own thing. But I think that like he always looks up to me. He always talks positively about me, and I think like I'm not like I'm just grateful for him. So.
Yeah, that's cool, man. That's beautiful to hear. Good stuff. Well, we're pretty much at the end. Do you have anything that you want to say before you close off, or anything? Like, obviously, I'll have all your socials and stuff, guys. If you want to follow along with BioPanther, his Twitter isn't. I don't think you stream at the moment, but your Twitter isn't going to be in the description and any other links. You also do coaching as well. So I know if you want, I can put your Discord in the thing.
Yeah. My Discord will be best. Yeah.
But yeah, as you heard before, he is 1800 LP, rank 1 top. But no, you play every role. I've seen you play every role to a challenger level.
I play field with SoloQ. Like,
yeah.
I actually just play field. So.
Exactly. So if you're stuck and you want to develop your mental, like, you know, you're a type race player, definitely go see Bio about it, because he'll be able to get you out of that quick smart. Yeah. Thanks for coming on, man. I had a great talk.
Yeah, thank you. I just think that if anyone wants to like get anything from this, I think it's just about like just enjoying every day of your life, whether it's through League or through anything. Just like take the time to enjoy every moment. I think it's just very important, and you'll just feel much more fulfilled.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah, great, man. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on again. Really appreciate it. Maybe we'll have you on again in the future.
Yeah.
Who knows? I really enjoyed it. It was great talking to you.
All right.
Cool, man. Thanks very much.